Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again, and I'm here now with the epic comparison between these three awesome mid-range phones, the Galaxy A70, Nokia X71, and the Redmi Note 7 Pro. And so my plan today is to go down the laundry list and really kind of look at these phones from a design, display, performance, audio, and then camera perspective, and then give my thoughts on which phone I think is the best for your money at the end. Now, I've spent obviously varying levels of time with each of these phones. The Redmi Note 7 Pro I've had for almost a month now, and it's been a solid phone. And I think in terms of price and value, is definitely the lowest price of these, coming in at around $250 US. I got mine for 2,200 Hong Kong dollars, so definitely a good couple hundred less than these other two. Meanwhile, the A70 I got for around 2,800 Hong Kong dollars, or around 350 US, and then the Nokia X71 I got for around 2,800 as well. But pricing aside, I think there's a lot to talk about with these phones, and so I'll try to do this in a kind of bullet point format so we don't get too long here. But I can't wait to share my thoughts on these awesome mid-rangers and then share which is the best of them all. So let's have a look. Design. In terms of weight, 183 grams, 180 grams, and 186. These are all topping out in a very similar weight level, but for some reason the A70 actually feels a little bit lighter. I think that has to do with the surface area of this phone. It just feels lighter in the hand, even though in reality they're the same weight. Psychologically feels lighter, but I would say the heftiest of the three here is the Nokia X71, and it is also, I would say, the most premium in terms of build. And this has an aluminum and glass back, so it really gives it a bit more substantial feeling in the hand. Now, in terms of actual thickness, we're talking 7.9 millimeters on the A70, 8 millimeters on the Nokia X71, and 8.1 millimeters on the Redmi Note 7 Pro. Here you can clearly see how much taller the A70 is compared to these two already pretty large phones. And in terms of design, we see that the A70 has the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack at the bottom. They're all USB-C. They got mics on the sides. They all share similar placement with their volume rocker and power buttons. And one nice feature of the Redmi Note 7 Pro, it does have that IR blaster at the top. I do like the placement of the A70's headphone jack over the Nokia X71 and the Redmi Note 7 Pro on the top. I'm not a huge fan of that top headphone jack placement, but if you're looking at these three phones, you can clearly tell which ones are going for the more kind of snazzy, the more kind of stylish look, and which one is going for the more classic, austere look. The Nokia X71, despite not having the color and kind of this really nice shimmer of the other two, I think is the best built of the three. This two-tone aluminum edge speaks of a premium feel, and this glass back, even though the other two do a good job with their backs, this glass back just feels really nice and premium. Now, don't get me wrong, I know the Redmi Note 7 Pro also has that Gorilla Glass 5 back, but maybe just because of the color choice and the plastic edge, it feels a little less premium in the hand. And look at the backs of these phones, and the A70 and the Redmi Note 7 Pro have the cameras on the sides, but you see the module here in the center, similar to the OnePlus phones on the Nokia X71. I think this just has a more symmetrical look, and I really do appreciate it. And trying to three-hand to show you the bezels here. Oh, wow. That is a pretty significant difference between the two on the ends and the Redmi Note 7 Pro. The X71 and the A70 just feel more modern. The Redmi Note 7 Pro feels like a 2018 phone, while these other two feel like 2019 phones. And the bezel size has a lot to do with it. But between these two, I have to give it to the X71 with that punch hole cutout, and the top bezel is around the same size. It feels more modern, and it just feels like a better design overall. These phones bring a lot to the table, but if I had to only pick one in terms of design, I'm gonna go with the Nokia X71. This is hearkening to the other phones that have been released this year, like the Honor View 20, and the Galaxy S10 series with the punch hole cutout and small bezels all around. I think this is by far the most modern design. Add to that the glass back and the really nice two-tone aluminum finish, and the Nokia X71 takes this design round, and the Galaxy A70 comes in second with very small bezels but a plastic build, with the Redmi Note 7 looking the most outdated of the three. Display: 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display versus 6.39-inch and 6.3-inch IPS LCD displays. And in display, there is a clear gulf between these two phones and the Galaxy A70. The Galaxy A70 is bringing Samsung's Super AMOLED to the mid-range segment and is doing it in a powerful way. If you see this phone in the store and compare it to the panel on the S10 Plus or the S10, you will be surprised how good and how similar it actually is in terms of quality. It is a very nice panel, and it is a very bright panel. This is it on max brightness and a very decent white point on the A70. The colors pop, and you got those inky blacks that you can only get on AMOLED. So I think this is a runaway first place victory for the Galaxy A70. Now, in terms of these two, which is the better panel? I think these two phones are being sourced from a similar spot, but just because of the more modern look and appeal of the X71, I give it the edge here, just in terms of the more immersive viewing experience. The smaller bezels and the Redmi Note 7 Pro comes last here. YouTube playback on the A70, the Nokia X71, and the Redmi Note 7 Pro. And I will stick to what I said earlier, that I do think the most immersive viewing experience is the Galaxy A70, just because of the sheer size of this panel. The AMOLED also really draws you in with these real vivid colors. They just pop, and you can set that in Samsung settings there to have more vivid mode on certain video playback apps like YouTube. And just because of that, I give it a pass on the notch. I don't think it ruins the experience too much. If you really don't like it though, you'll still have, and look at that, you'll still have almost as large a viewing experience without the pinch to zoom on the A70 as on the other phones. Now, the Nokia X71 does a great job here because of this edge-to-edge display, and the punch hole does disappear when I'm viewing content, but it is IPS LCD. It doesn't have that same just color range as AMOLED, and that goes for the Redmi Note 7 Pro as well. So if I had to put them in order, I'd give the top YouTube playback experience to the Galaxy A70, followed by the Nokia X71, and the Redmi Note 7 Pro coming in last. But in DRM Info, looks like we have two good stories and one less so. The A70 and the Nokia X71 both have security level L1 for CDM wideband, which means you get HD Netflix out of the box. But let's say it together, wow, wow. My Redmi Note 7 Pro, which is the China version, is getting L3. I know what you guys are saying in India, but mine has L1. Mine has L1. Well, that's good for you guys, but for anywhere else this phone is available, or for most of the people trying to import this into their countries, you're likely to get the China version, and that means you'll likely get L3 only. And quick mention of battery life, because this will be determined in my later battery drain test. As I mentioned before, the Galaxy A70 has a 4,500 mAh battery, so it clearly should be the best performing of these three. Meanwhile, the Nokia X71 should be the least performing with that only 3,500 mAh power pack, and the Redmi Note 7 Pro with that 4,000 mAh capacity. It should do well. These three phones are going to be a part of that epic battery drain test, so get ready for that. But in the meantime, I can tell you and share a graphic of the battery life on the Galaxy A70, and this was just in my last day or two of use. So I did get around 6 hours and 7 minutes of screen on time, but 1 hour of that almost was spent playing Fortnite. Yeah, that's right, Fortnite can be played on the Galaxy A70, but you can see it did pretty well so far with battery life. And I think if you're just doing standard stuff, this is easily a day-and-a-half phone, maybe 2 days with light use. But stay tuned for that full battery test for my more in-depth analysis of the battery on these three phones. Performance, specifically Geekbench scores, and here there's another gulf between two of the phones and one. The A70 and the Redmi Note 7 Pro have that Snapdragon 675. Now I'm using the 8GB variant right now, but I know the global variant is the 6GB 128 version. That should not affect your scores and your CPU performance. You'll still get great performance, and this is almost Snapdragon 845 levels of single core performance out of the A70, but the Redmi Note 7 Pro is right on its heels with a very similar score and a very similar configuration. And I know that there is a 4GB variant of the Redmi Note 7 Pro, while in the case of the A70 there is none. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, the Nokia X71 with a Snapdragon 660, and that is just the major letdown in terms of performance of these three. I don't know their decision process in including such an old chip in such a new and forward-thinking phone. They really are kind of getting a bit muddled now with their releases. They've released a bunch of phones, and it's kind of hard to keep up which model is better than the other. And in this case, I don't know what the final name of this is going to be when it is released globally. It may be the Nokia 6.2, it could be something in the 7 series, but it definitely won't be something in the 8 series because the 8.1 already has a Snapdragon 710, and that would be taking a step back in my opinion. So this is unfortunate, and I think if you had to pick in terms of performance, just on the configurations alone, I give first place to the A70 because it does come in a higher configuration, entry level. The Redmi Note 7 Pro starts at 4GB, and for all you guys talking about the price of the Redmi Note 7 Pro, oh, you can't compare it to these phones, you can't do it, I'm doing it. And guess what? The price you're quoting is not this phone. This is the 6GB 128 variant, and it is more expensive than the entry-level price you guys are quoting. But that does not give a pass to Nokia here, who have released a phone that cost me almost $350 US and comes with a Snapdragon 660. It's just unacceptable at that price point. And here we are with a little bit of PUBG Mobile on the A70, Nokia X71, and Redmi Note 7 Pro. And I have the settings all laid out here. And look at this. Trying to play HDR? Cannot. There's no ultra mode, and I can't go realistic. And on the Nokia X71 also, no HDR capable, and ultra is not there. And on the Galaxy A70, not only can I play in HDR mode, but I have ultra available out of the box. That's why I said this might be the best gaming experience I've had playing PUBG on a phone since the Mate 20X. The A70 came in first, followed by the Redmi Note 7 Pro, and we're still waiting on the Nokia X71. There they are running for the shore. You know what it's time for. The classic Frankie Tech swim test. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Here we are in the plane jump, and let's have a look on all three phones, how we're doing. Galaxy A70, no problems, nothing doing, it's handling this perfectly. And it looks like I might have kept a different look on the Nokia X71. This is the biggest waste of space on any of the three phones, and it is such a letdown on this pretty much bezel-less phone to have such a waste of space. But the Redmi Note 7 Pro, it's doing real well here, and it's utilizing the full display. A little frame drop there, but I think this phone can handle it. So let's get down to the surface and play a little bit on all three phones. And I don't know where I ended up on the Nokia X71, so I'm swimming to shore. So in the meantime, let's get to the other phones. And I'm on the ground on the Redmi Note 7 Pro and the Galaxy A7 in hand here. Let's go get some guns. And there are all the three phones. I'm trying to get somewhere. Let's try to get to these houses. Try to get some guns. Still swimming up here. Oh man, let's get in there. I'm getting shot at on the A70. Let's see if I can get some stuff and shoot someone back. Oh man, gonna get killed. Guys, and this is the danger of playing on three phones. I'm getting annihilated on the Redmi Note 7 Pro. I may be dead already. You hear that gun battle happening over there? I think I'm going to be dead on the A70 soon. And once again, I'm proving that you should never try this at home. Don't ever try to play on 3 phones at once, because it is a bitch. Let's see if I can get 1 kill here. Take that! Ah! Yes, take that. Oh man, I've never wanted to just shoot someone so bad. And meanwhile, on the Redmi Note 7 Pro, I'm almost dead. I'm pretty much near death. Can I even save myself at this point? I don't think I can. And I am done. I've been made short order there. And they're going to kill me now. What a brutal end to this 3-way destruction. And meanwhile, we have found a warehouse here on the X71. Let's see if I can save my buddies. And I've been shot dead on all 3 phones. The end is near for Frankie Tech in probably one of the worst showings I've ever had in my classic 3-phone battle. So now, after I completely regretted doing that, let me talk about how they're feeling in the hand. And the Galaxy A70 is definitely a bit warm on the left side, but it's not doing too bad. But the Nokia X71 is burning up. It is so hot to the touch on the edge here, and that just proves how inefficient that Snapdragon 660 is on this phone. And the Redmi Note 7 Pro is similar to the Galaxy A70. It's a little warm on the left side, but it is not so extreme like the Nokia X71. This is clear proof that if you want to have a better gaming experience and not melt your hand off, you're going to want to pick up one of these two. And Nokia, I'm sorry, but 660 just doesn't cut it anymore. And it's a pity that you didn't get this right either, because that really cuts out a lot of the viewing experience and a lot of the fun out of playing PUBG Mobile on your smartphone. And now the audio speaker test. Bringing the mic down, let's have a listen. And what can I say? That was a very close battle between these 3 phones with their bottom firing speakers. And in my final analysis, if I'm just going to give it to one phone, it's going to the Redmi Note 7 Pro. At 100%, the sound was just better. There's just more clarity, and the other 2 phones get really tinny at 100%. I'm actually surprised the A70 did as poor as it did. It was trading at that 2nd to 3rd place spot with the Nokia X71. I think the Nokia is a little bit louder, but once again, it gets a little muffled, and the sound just is a little less pleasing at that 100% mark. They all sound decent at 75, but if you want to blast it and you want to have decent sound, you're still getting a better performance here out of the Redmi Note 7 Pro. So a pretty surprising result, but the Redmi Note 7 Pro edges out the other 2 with a 1st place finish. And between these 2, if I had to pick one, I might give the slight edge to the Nokia just in terms of loudness, and the A70, surprising, finishes dead last. Wow. And talking about camera, another point of separation between 2 phones versus one, we have triple camera setups on the Galaxy A70 and the Nokia X71, 32 megapixels, 8 megapixels, 5 megapixels, 48 megapixel Sony IMX586 with an 8 megapixel ultra-wide, 5 megapixel depth sensor, While the Redmi Note 7 Pro, it only has that Sony IMX586, 48 megapixels, and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. So no wide angle on the Redmi Note 7 Pro. It loses that very important camera, and I think it is something that you will eventually see in the budget mid-range. But as of right now, these two phones are offering something that I think is very important to keep in mind. Wide angle shots are becoming the norm in many cases, and these two are far more versatile cameras just because they include them. And talking about selfie cameras, we got a 32 megapixel on the A70, a 16 on the Nokia X71, and a 13 megapixel on the Redmi Note 7 Pro. All phones can shoot rear 4K 30 frames per second, and they can shoot front-facing video at 1080p 30 frames per second. But this is about this question: which phone takes the best shot? And I think you've seen a lot of Redmi Note 7 Pro samples. You've seen a few of the other two, but what you haven't seen are these stills put together in one place. So now I share with you some of the samples I've taken with these three phones. Have a look at them and let me know what you think in the comments. Final verdict. All these phones are awesome mid-rangers, and all these phones offer so much for the money. Now, there are varying levels of value that you need to consider when looking at the A70 versus the Nokia, or the Redmi Note 7 Pro versus the Nokia, or the A70 versus the Redmi Note 7 Pro. There's a lot of stuff to consider, and it's really going to come down to your preferences, but I do have to give a final verdict here of which phone I think does it the best overall. But I will do kind of it in two parts here: which phone I think is the best phone, and then which phone I think in terms of value still may be the best for you. In terms of just the best phone, if money was no object, I'm gonna have to go with the Galaxy A70. Despite the fingerprint scanner issues that I was having earlier, they have actually since improved, and it's gone a little bit faster now. Software updates can improve that experience, and the other main thing to keep in mind are all the things this phone has that the other ones don't. So that built-in in-display fingerprint scanner will get better. NFC is included in the box. You have AMOLED and a beautiful bright 6.7-inch display. You have bigger battery at 4,500 milliamperes. So this phone is bringing so much, and I think if you look at this in the store, there is rumor this may be released in the States as well. And if it does, I think a lot of people are going to compare this next to the Galaxy S10 Plus and think, you know what am I missing here? I'm not missing much. This is the phone to go for. And that is why this A70 has been such an incredible phone to review. It has really put Samsung back on the map in terms of being a part of the mid-range scene. I'm happy to be able to now include Samsung as one of the companies I can start reviewing and comparing to other phones. So if money is no object, I know it's a little more expensive at $350 US, but I think you're getting a lot of phone for the Galaxy A70 and is my top pick today. But this is a two-part verdict, and we have to talk about value. So if I had to pick one phone as the ultimate value phone to pick, if money was important and you want to get the most bang for buck, you gotta go with the Redmi Note 7 Pro. this phone, despite not having some of the features of the other two, brings so much to the table. There is a reason why it'll probably be one of the top selling phones of 2019 in India, definitely, and maybe some other markets. But I think in terms of just overall experience that you are getting so much from display quality, battery life, 4,000 milliamperes, that 48 megapixels Sony IMX586. You're getting a lot of other great features. You're getting that Snapdragon 675, and it is just a great phone. It is looking a little bit older now that we're starting to see these really great bezel-less beauties. But don't get me wrong, the Redmi Note 7 Pro, if you're on a budget and you still want the best phone for the money, is probably still your best bet, if you can get it. And that's my main point. And this kind of is the crux of the whole conversation. Availability of the Redmi Note 7 Pro outside of India and China is very limited. It's going to be released, I think, hopefully in some other markets, but as of right now, this phone is not available to most of the world. And I'm sorry to you guys in India, but to the rest of my viewers in other countries, this phone is extremely hard to get. Meanwhile, the Galaxy A70 is now available in stores in Hong Kong. You can go to any of the Fortress, Broadway, any shop here in Hong Kong and pick this phone up today. And if you're in certain markets where Samsung has a really great presence, you are going to be pretty certain that they're going to be releasing this phone in your market. So in terms of availability, the A70 might have the Redmi Note 7 Pro beat. And as the price starts going down on this phone, it's going to be the no-brainer deal to get. And so that's why I got to say that the Redmi Note 7 Pro may be the ultimate value smartphone for you guys in India, but for the rest of the world and for what you're getting, the A70 brings so much to the table. And now let's talk about the final phone that we haven't mentioned, the Nokia X71. And this is going to sound harsh. Nokia, you got to go back to the drawing board. It's time to go back to the drawing board, because whoever made the decisions that you did to price this phone the way you did and to include that Snapdragon 660 in it, that was a mistake. I almost wish I had been a part of your company, or at least someone in your decision-making process, to realize that you couldn't release your most forward-looking punch hole camera, selfie camera phone and have this amazing bezel-less look and release with such an old chip. That was a mistake, and I think you guys are going to pay for it. It's going to be an unfortunate lack of sales that you'll see because of that decision. And really, when you have two amazing phones like the A70 and the Redmi Note 7 Pro next to the X71, it's hard to recommend this phone. And I would say only get this phone if you're a Nokia fan and if you really want that punch hole camera look, because otherwise I think you are better suited picking either of these two over this underpowered, underwhelming phone. But hit me up in the comments, which phone of these would you pick? We went a little bit long here. I knew we would, but I had a lot to say about these phones. Thanks for watching this epic comparison. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. And if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for future updates. Gonna need a little bit of a break after this one. This one was intense, but thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more details of that giveaway coming soon. And this is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech signing off. Y'all have a good one.